We're about to welcome Meter co-founder and CEO Anil Varanasi. He is one of those entrepreneurs that is determined to change the world. He is fundamentally transforming the enterprise networking market with a singular focus on breakthrough innovation, endorsed by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, so he must be doing something right. Please welcome Meter CEO Anil Varanasi.
Hey, Stefan. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. So let's talk about how you started Meter. When you and your brother founded Meter 10 years ago, you had this audacious goal to create a company that would do for networking what AWS did for cloud computing. And can you just talk about what was the opportunity that you and your brother Sunil saw? He's your CTO now.
Yeah.
Talk about this opportunity that you saw to disrupt networking, and why does it matter to these partners here in the room?
I think the thing that matters to partners most is, along with selling PCs, networking was one of the big impetuses for the channel to even get started in the last 30, 40 years ago. That's how network channel grew, is selling networking. But if you look at networking, it's one of the few industries that has multiple $200 billion plus market cap businesses, yet no new companies come in at all. It's probably the most scathing review against the efficient market hypothesis. And we saw that there were a couple of things that were happening in networking that we entirely disagreed with. First, vendors kept saying hardware is commoditized. Second, the way that they were building products was mainly through acquisition rather than building them together that are cohesive in software and operating systems, etc. And third was the pricing model. They were trying to make hardware for as cheaply as possible and sell it as expensive as possible. And I'm sure you all have renegotiated networking vendor deals many times in the last decade or two. We disagreed with all three of those things. We didn't believe hardware is commoditized. We think there was something great to be done on the components, the design, how it's built, the quality of it, especially as we've seen other hardware get so much better in other parts of technology. Then we also believe that you can build the whole thing from the ground up together. Why should it be that every part of networking is actually built through acquisition? Why can it be that you build the hardware, the operating systems, the applications all together for power, routing, switching, security, wireless? And it's a much better outcome for customers and partners as well, because most issues in networking happen either because of configuration and compatibility issues or security issues because of this disparate thing. And then we had a different business model in mind too, which everything else was moving towards the vendor will only get paid if they continuously provide value. Whereas in networking, they sort of made a box, sold a box, and then washed their hands off. We thought that was also wrong. So that was kind of the opportunity we saw and how we ended up starting the company.
Give our audience here a better understanding of the model itself, because it's unique.
Sure. So usually when you're deploying networks anywhere, there's two big costs. There's capital costs, and then there's operational costs. On the capital costs, the two big ones are obviously hardware costs and install costs. And the operational costs are either building out a team internally or working with one of the great partners here across different types of partners. And what we thought was, both for the customers and the partners, taking away the capital expenditure would be great to be able to do. And this would happen, like you mentioned, with AWS as well. Before AWS came along, you sort of had to go buy the server, stack them, figure out all these different configurations. Then somebody else took on the capital risk that customers and partners didn't have to front. So same with us. When customers have existing hardware, we'll buy that out, so there's no sunk cost. We'll install our racks entirely free of cost, which we take on the risk of everything from power, routing, switching, like I mentioned. And then when new hardware is built, because of new technologies that come out or new specs from IEEE or anything like that, we will upgrade our customers as well. So this is value we want to provide to customers through our partners, and everything being a cost that's related to the OpEx, which is us plus a partner for a customer. But at the same time, customers and partners can take our contracts and capitalize them at least in case if you have CapEx you want to spend as well. But the underlying model is we believe that people that build the hardware and software should be the ones responsible for it and should be the ones taking on the risk. So we take on all the capital risk entirely.
And then what about the partner piece? How do they get compensated?
Yeah, so it's just a monthly cut or annual cut that's recurring, high quality, predictable revenue. For so many businesses and channel, networking is still a significant part, but it's low quality revenue today because you get one-time revenue and it's unclear how it's going to be. We've all seen this transition in the last 15, 20 years that businesses that have recurring revenue are actuated much higher than the ones that are not. With Meter, we have set contracts with customers, and as we get paid, partners get paid the same cut as well, while having much better hardware, much better software, which means they have to spend less time designing networks, configuring and maintaining networks. That means they can take on more customers and have happier customers. So it's a very sort of incentive aligned. My brother and I like working on things that long term, where, if you have a three-sided marketplace between a customer, partner, and us, that the incentives are totally aligned everywhere.
How'd you decide which one of you would be the CEO?
He usually fires me into being CEO. This is our second time running a company together. He's my older brother, and if anybody has an older sibling, they sort of just tell you what to do, and you're somehow supposed to do it. Yeah, I would prefer to go code, but I think he's like, go be CEO. This is the second time he's done this to me. This is 19 years of us working together now.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. We mentioned up top this incredible list of investors that you have, including OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, who maybe wasn't Sam Altman then, but he is now, and also the former CEO of Google Cloud, Diane Greene. Can you just talk about how you've brought these folks on board?
Yeah, I think one of the remarkable things about Silicon Valley, and those of you who spend time there know, is it's sort of like a very small community. I was mentioning this to Julie, who walked me up here, that San Francisco is just a city of 800,000 people. The airport of Atlanta is bigger in size than San Francisco, just so you have context. It's a very tiny place. When you're building something that's interesting, usually other people end up hearing about it. So Sam had heard about a bunch of work we had done. We met him through that. Diane, we met through some Google folks, but also John Collison, who's the president of Stripe. And, these are people that we had admired for the work they've done, particularly somebody like Diane. Ben Horowitz is this person that used to run Ops Cloud. If you guys remember in the 90s, he runs his venture firm now. He wrote this great book where he called Diane a God-level CEO. Diane is like that. So I think it was very fortunate for us where they all saw the value on building better networking and then ended up becoming part of the business.
What would you say is the best advice that Sam Altman has given you as you've worked to make Meter successful?
I'd say less advice. I actually don't know if any advice is actually applicable to people because I think each situation is so different. But there's a certain way to think about things that I think Sam is incredibly different at. One, he is able to identify trends way before other people. And two, I think he's able to invest in exponents before other people are comfortable doing. And this was a story of the transformers as well. Google had built transformers in 2017, but I don't think many people inside of Google were ready to either cannibalize the search business or invest in a training run of $100 million that might not pan out. I think what he does remarkably well is take trends and not be afraid of exponents way earlier than other people.
I'll do one more and then I'll give it to you, Stevie. This hardware stack, you
Yeah.
have total control over it, the software,
Yes.
and to the end that you and your brother actually went to Shenzhen in China
Yeah.
and lived there for a year to
Yeah.
oversee the production. Is that what it was? To oversee the
That's right.
development. Tell us that story and what that was like.
Yeah, so I think particularly about a decade ago, if you imagine America not being that great at building infrastructure and hardware today, a decade prior, it was even worse. We would design circuit boards and it would take 6 to 8 weeks to get back those circuit boards. And that's no way to iterate really fast on any products you're trying to build. Usually what you want to do is do some work, know if it's good or not, or ideally, if it's great or not, and then you sort of build on top of it. So, just like San Francisco is like the provider of software for the world, Shenzhen is one of the best cities. It went from 30,000 people to 30 million people in 30 years. It's one of the most remarkable places. That's sort of the factory for the world. So it was really great for us to go to be able to prototype really fast. And all the components and factories are right there, situated in one place. So it was a grand time. I think, regardless of the geopolitical situation we're in today, I think people anywhere are just great. They just want to do great work. They want to provide for their family and, ideally be happy. Shenzhen was amazing for us to be able to do that. I think being able to prototype really fast, being able to walk up to any factory, get a component, and just start trying things, it was some of the best time of my life. Yeah.
We're going to talk about the big one here, Microsoft. They're an
Sure.
investor. They were part of a $170 million C-level funding round in June. You announced a multi-year strategic partnership with them earlier this year that opens the door for Microsoft partners to sell Meter Network as a service with no upfront cost through the Azure Marketplace. How big an opportunity is this for the partners in this room?
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity. Most of the enterprises in the world have some sort of agreement with Microsoft to buy their services. And they have this thing called the MAC, which is sort of this minimum they will spend with Microsoft. What this partnership enables everyone to do, especially partners in this room and sellers everywhere, is be able to sell Meter through that marketplace, and customers get to deprecate that cost from their agreement. Now, that hasn't been available for networking before on the Azure Marketplace. So think about somebody's a retailer, has 1,000 locations, they're looking to do a refresh in networking. They might already be using Azure for Teams or something like that. Now they can buy Meter through that same marketplace and get that decrement against their contract and just flow through really easily and get those discounts that are in place in the Azure Marketplace. So for partners, they'd be selling something that's better economically for the customer, yet still getting the same economics they might if they sold directly. And the customer's further incentivized to buy because it helps them with this agreement they have with Microsoft. I didn't understand it first when Satya said this will be great. And I was like, it sounds fine. But then as I learned about it, I think it's one of the most remarkable things they've done.
Yeah, you don't have to get the purchase order.
That's right.
The cloud, the spend is there.
That's
It's
right.
that cloud commit. So how big an economic impact do you think this is going to have on Meter? What are you seeing is the economic impact?
We anticipate it'll be one of the biggest channels we have over the next few years. We're already seeing tremendous amount of progress with deals, and with the amount of deals we have in the pipeline, how many have a Microsoft agreement? I had underappreciated until I looked at our pipeline in the last few months. We think it's going to drive hundreds of millions of revenue to Meter over the next few years.
Anil, what's the pipeline you're seeing?
Yeah, so we're now global, and the different pipeline we're seeing is everybody from some of the largest enterprises in the world to retailers, healthcare, manufacturing facilities, schools, etc., come in. At one end, we have companies like Bridgewater, who's the largest hedge fund in the world, running on Meter, to technology companies, manufacturing companies, some of the largest independent schools, some of the largest group of Montessori schools, all running on Meter. And especially in the last 2 years, the pipeline is sort of growing on itself. And I think partners have been an incredible part of that story. We've onboarded some of the best channel partners in the last 18 months as we were building out the program. And it's been really accretive to our business.
Can you talk about some of the deals that those guys have won? I know you've gotten WWT and CDW, but what are some of the deals that you've won as a result of the Microsoft agreement that you can point to and say, this is how it happened, and this is the impact on the customer? Because you think about it, no upfront cost. That capital expenditure for either a startup or even a company that wants to do a network refresh for the AI era.
Yeah. Retail is a huge one we're seeing a big pull in. Usually, as you all know, IT teams and retail are sort of strapped on capital. They wait for end of life, end of support because the budgets aren't there. Procurement's really tight. Finance teams are really tight. But they, because of the distributed nature, usually have some sort of deal with Microsoft for N number of services they might be buying. So what we're seeing is two sorts of deals come in through our pipeline, where Microsoft sellers are bringing us into their deals because they're buying it. And then we bring in a partner to help us facilitate that deal ourselves. So then we're bringing in pipeline to our partners. And at the same time, the other way around too, a channel partner might bring us a deal, but we bring in a Microsoft seller to then say, hey, this customer has this agreement of a cloud commit that will go down and they can buy meter through it, then the deals are further accelerated. So I think generally what you want in a business is bigger pipeline and faster close, and that's what sort of the partnership is enabling us to do.
How did you originate the deal? How did you get the deal with Microsoft? Who approached who? How did the deal come down? How did you get Satya to sign off?
We had released this product called Command about 1.5 years ago. We built models from the ground up that understand networking to be able to design, deploy, and maintain networks better than anything possible. Somehow that caught the eye of everybody that's building technology companies and running technology companies. And we had heard Satya had also seen it and that he loved the product as well. And one of our good friends, this guy named Jay Parikh, who built a lot of things for Facebook, ended up at Microsoft as, working directly to Satya, and Jay introduced us, and then we ended up just talking about products, what we want to do with infrastructure. And context on Microsoft is obviously they're one of the largest purchasers of networking in the world. If you look at somebody like Arista, who's a $200 billion business, Microsoft is their largest customer. And somebody like Satya, I think, has such a strong sense of the technical aspects, and he helped build Azure. So it's sort of just built upon that. And over the course of 6 to 8 months, we ironed out a partnership for the next decade.
You once said that you said that what Satya has done over there at Microsoft is vastly underappreciated. Getting back to the Jen question too, what advice has Satya given you about how you're building this forward? And it's really becoming a central part of their business in the Azure Marketplace. It could be a big deal for AI for Microsoft too, because it solves kind of the networking architecture issue, right?
Yeah, I think what he's done that why I believe is underappreciated is usually in companies, particularly larger companies, at the C-suite level, there's an immense amount of turnover. But the team he has around him are people that he's worked with for 10, 15, 20 years. And that having that collective understanding of where they're trying to take Microsoft and being able to do it together, I just find it fascinating to be able to do that at that scale and working with people for 15, 20 years. It's not that easy to do.
What milestones are you working on? I know this agreement's pretty deep and there's some technical stuff there. What are the milestones you're working on, and what kind of co-development are you doing? With how many developers do you have working together with Microsoft on this stuff?
Yeah, dozens and hundreds on their side as well. One of the other parts of the partnership is they're building out infrastructure for us for being able to train models. They're one of the best infrastructure companies in the world. They have a large cluster of GPUs for us where we're training models from the ground up for networking, which is we have this hardware, we have our operating systems for the entire stack, and data that's coming through all of it. Now, we want to make it really easy for our customers and partners to be able to design, deploy, and maintain networks. Ideally, all of that happens entirely instantly. So the big part of the partnership also is being able to train models from the ground up for networking on their clusters, because we're obviously not a GPU infrastructure business.
Yeah.
They are. So they built out all this infrastructure for us to be able to build models that are just built for networking and built on networking knowledge, networking data, and understanding the meter stack.
How important is that going to be for AI? We're talking about architectures here all week. How important is that going to be for AI as you build out these models that you don't have to spend the CapEx? You can really look at this architecturally from the cloud with Microsoft and Meter.
Yeah, I think the thing that, sometimes we might not realize because we all work on this every single day is the simple bet we have is the internet will continue to grow from here. There's no stopping point. And everything in the world is packets. And if you look at Bureau of Labor Statistics, after software engineers, network engineers, one of the highest level and number of jobs in the United States. But something close to 40% of network engineers are retiring by the end of this decade without replacement. And that's not even accounting for the growth. This is just replacement rate that I'm talking about. When you look at network engineering, if a lot of you are kids and in university and other places, almost nobody's studying this at all. If you talk to young people today, they've never even seen a switch in their entire life. If you say Switch, they think it's a Nintendo Switch that you're asking about. So what we're seeing is this is growing dramatically, but the number of people coming in is going down. And this is the pain I hear from the channel and our partners all the time as well. They're not able to hire enough people to be able to service their customers too.
Yeah.
So where the models come in, while we're investing so much capital, time, and resources, is to help augment that. Whereas so much of the tech industry is, really hell-bent on augmenting software engineers, we think there will be more software engineers in the world. It's more important to do so for network engineers. And that's what we're building, to be able to give that to our partners who can then say, here's a customer I'm looking to deploy, having a design that comes in instantly, then a configuration that's done, and a deployment where down to the packaging and shipping is already done. And that whole round trip should take the time of a Google search, which is being able to design and configure and being ready to deploy networks in under 500 milliseconds. That's what we're working towards.
Last question, I'll give it to you, Jen. What's the quickest way for people to, these partners, a lot of Microsoft partners here, virtually probably everyone.
Right.
What's the quickest way for these partners to monetize this network as a service opportunity with Meter?
I think with any of their customers, existing or in pipeline, think about also the fact that they need networking. We can come in with our hardware, with our software, with our business model, and our partnership with Microsoft to be able to both help accelerate the closing for any of the deals you all have, and then also increase the revenue you get with high quality, recurring, predictable revenue.
It's a good story.
We talked about this, integrated stack.
Right.
Can you give some examples of the benefits of that, as far as, what are some of the common mistakes or configuration problems that these partners probably run into all the time that now go away because you are taking care of it?
A couple of things. I'm sure lots of folks in this room have run into this version of switch doesn't work with this version of access point and this version of firewall or whatever, and that pain it takes of being able to deploy. Then having all that documentation internally, training people, then being able to maintain it. That's one aspect. Second is all these security holes that happen because of all these things. Some piece of the stack is end of life, end of support, but it's sort of dangling there just to keep the setup alive. But more importantly, even amongst the small things, is performance, reliability, and security. Being able to have one integrated stack means we're not doing nonsensical things of trying to have our access points do anything other than Wi-Fi. So the chips that are available there, they're only doing Wi-Fi. So we're able to get much better performance and reliability out of it. Same thing on switching, on routing, etc. Because we know one stack is connected to another, we can offload these rudimentary and duplicate stacks across. And then what it enables our teams to do is focus on things that we can do that are innovative, with how we do packet processing, how we do routing, how we do our algorithms, and how we build applications. And day to day, being able to have that visibility and control, the important part that we've always felt is just because we're doing this business model does not mean we want to take away any control from our customers or partners. Most of our investment goes into being able to build remarkably beautiful software. If you look at the networking industry in the last 20, 25 years, this is not software you would consider beautiful. But we think our partners and our customers should have one single pane that goes from ISP all the way to SD-WAN with everything in between, just with one click.
So your competitor Cisco has also tried to vertically integrate with trying to control the silicon and the software. Now they've spent $28 billion on Splunk to provide a leap forward in network security and AI network automation. What impact do you see that deal having on the market, and what does it mean for head-to-head competition for you?
I think it's a really good spin to take something like Splunk and Adamics and to say it has something to do with networking. I don't think it really does have anything to do with networking. The way they've tried to vertically integrate is, yes, they've been and tried to build silicon, but if you look at the last 25, 30 years, they bought the Catalyst business, they bought Meraki, they bought OpenDNS, they bought Thousand Eyes, et cetera, et cetera. At one point in the 90s, every year, they were probably acquiring 20 to 30 companies a year, and that sort of led into the early 2000s as well. only somebody not working in technology would assume you can just take disparate companies and say combine. That's not vertical integration. Vertical integration is having a single hardware platform, single firmware image, single operating stack, single data pipeline, and a single application, all built together, knowing what's happening. So the things that I think they do well is having this large portfolio that you can sell any random thing to a customer. That's not our strategy, and we'll probably lose with customers and partners that want this thing, that the same company that's providing a network is going to give me where I dump all my data. We think that should be some other great company that we partner with. But what we're seeing from our customers and partners is combination of them not focusing and others in the industry not focusing on great hardware, great software, and an economic model that doesn't work for customers. That's sort of, as much as we're doing great work, I think it's also the industry running towards us away from some of these legacy companies.
You touched on this a little bit ago, but there really is this huge industry around Cisco certified techs and network admins.
Yeah.
And this has been built out for decades.
Yes.
How does the cost of operating a meter network compare to the cost of a Cisco network?
Yeah. So again, the CapEx is zero. I just want to make sure people understand. Literally zero. So it starts there. Then deploying, designing, and maintaining a meter network is roughly 1/3 to 1/4 of the cost, on top of CapEx being zero.
So then we have, on the other side, we have HPE. They've gone in a different direction with the $13.4 billion acquisition of Juniper Networks. They're looking to really dig more into AI with Mist, self-healing network. That's been on the market for a decade.
Right.
What do you see as the difference between the AI approach that you're taking versus what HPE is up to now?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important questions in our industry today. What most vendors are doing is either taking data that they get from their customers and shipping it off to one of these model companies without any sort of sticking on security and data privacy, etc. Or they're using models from 15, 20 years ago that are open source and calling it AI. You don't hear us say the word AI much because we think it's sort of watered down. We believe in outcomes for customers, but the approach we're taking that's different than anybody in the industry, to this question earlier, is we are really focused on building models from the ground up that understand networking. What other people are doing is sort of the equivalent taking ChatGPT and putting it in a car like Tesla. I don't think any of us would get in a car if it was driven by ChatGPT. And I don't think ChatGPT should drive our networks either. We're building things from the ground up, and it's a different approach.
Ask one more and then we'll give it to you. What's your advice to partners on how to make this sales pitch to customers and overcome resistance that they might face just because of these long-standing incumbents with these big installed bases?
Yeah, I think where we're seeing partners have the most success are the ones that understand and want to drive customer outcomes. Usually, partners are selling reputation more than technology because they have these long-standing relationships with customers over the course of years and decades. What we're able to do and we're able to slot in is being able to pitch a better product that customers can touch and feel, being able to feel a better delivery model. We handle, along with our partners, everything from procuring ISPs to designing and deploying networks. So that happens in a much lower cost and much faster for customers. And then this pricing model that we talked about with zero capital expenditure and marginally lower on the operating expenditure. And that's been the pitch that's been resonating with customers.
I want to talk about software because it's really important to how you guys come to market. You mentioned Command Gen AI, which really grabbed the attention of Satya and Microsoft. Talk about what kind of benefits that brings to customers and how you see the software question playing out at Meter as you build the next generation networks for companies.
Yeah, so I think what we've done on software is probably one of the most undertold stories, and we're going to try to do a better job over the next year on being able to do that. Our innovation started with how we do packet processing, how we do a single operating system, and how we build data pipelines for the entire stack. Every single piece of hardware runs the same software at Meter, and that brings immense amount of advantages. Command, the product you're asking about, is a result of this, is being able to learn from all this data to be able to get information and take action. And those of you who want to see how it works, it's at meter.com/command. There's a great 90-second demo. It writes entire software on the fly based on what you ask. And we released this about 1.5 years ago, and customers and partners really believe in the product, and it changes this idea of either you have to use CLI or rely on dashboards that are built that are rigid, but this is models and software that's built on the fly. And our core tenet for this was we believe software should be soft, and actually being able to tailor to a customer and user's needs.
It's almost like Cursor then. You're creating software on the fly for customers. Can you give some examples?
Yeah.
And how does it compare to some of the agentic AI stuff that we're seeing being developed?
One, it's actually in production, and two, it actually works compared to everything else. But really, what you can do on the software side is build entire dashboards, have particular actions that are taken for you, and have it so that you are spending less time trying to remember every single little command that needs to happen. That's where the name command came from too. We built the product with partners in mind that might be managing hundreds of networks for our customers and being that great resource where they're bringing in integrations, other technologies, etc. So some of the examples are being able to do really complex things that usually might take clicking on 10 different dashboards, going to 5 different tabs and clicking everywhere, and being able to just say it and happen instantly.
You acquired Interval, an app development platform, right, for internal tools. Talk about how that deal changed the software picture for Meter and the impact that's had on the customer network experience.
Yeah, so Interval was very much focused on our partners more than our customers. We wanted to build great software that was built internally to be able to provide that software for our partners to be able to get information on the networks they're working with us, being able to deploy faster, design networks better, and get to better outcomes. So it's software that allows you to build software faster. And we acquired it primarily to be able to build better software for our partners.
One of the things I wanted to talk a little bit more about, you talked about the evolution of networking, but the evolution of the partner model, and you've seen how this whole thing is developed.
Right.
We've gone from resellers to solution providers, now to AI solution providers. How do you see the channel model evolving in this, almost a subscription as a service, taking on the big capital expenditure risk? And how do you see the partner model changing in terms of compensation, sales incentives, profitability, how the model changes for these partners out here?
Yeah, I don't think I have all the answers, but roughly what we're seeing on this is with our model, there's 2 really interesting things that are happening. Over the course of 3 to 5 years, we're seeing partners will make way more money than they otherwise would with networking. Because of the recurring nature of it, yes, you might make a little bit less upfront, but over the course of year 2, 3, 5, 7, you end up making a lot more money from this resource that's such a big part of all of technology. Then I do want to repeat what I mentioned earlier. The quality of revenue matters a lot. I'm sure a lot of you as business owners and folks that run business understand you want to have predictable, high quality revenue. Because of Meter's business model of handling things end to end and vertically integrating the hardware, software, delivery, and maintenance, a lot of the burden that usually was with partners to be able to do some of the lower quality revenue things, we've automated away with software and process at scale. That means there's higher quality revenue that gets kicked to the partners. Yeah. So when we see some of the largest channel partners so quickly move to Meter, I think along with the product, the economics are a huge part of the story.
What kind of services revenue are these guys seeing when they get into it and do a deal?
Yeah, it's everything from a cut on the ISP referral business to the installs to upgrades to delivery of the network and maintenance of the network. All of that coming into the same deal and getting a cut of the entire contract. And having that on their books as recurring high quality revenue, I think that's been transformative to partners that took an early bet on us a few years ago. And now they're growing their business dramatically fast, much faster than even I expected.
What's you don't have all the cost of running the networks a lot lower. What's the sales pitch? What's the most effective sales, pitch when customers are going in with the meter story?
Yeah, I think it's better product delivered end to end and a fraction of the TCO.
Looking into the future, and then I'll hand it over to you, Jen. Looking into the future, talk about, you guys have had a very clear vision on where to take this thing. How do you see AI
Sure.
impacting this network as a service model? And how do you see Meter continuing to innovate?
Yeah. I think for the model we're trying to do, most of ML, AI, and models are, again, very incentive aligned. Because what are we saying to our customers and what are our partners saying to customers is we're going to deliver this as a service. We're going to stand by the quality of the network. And we get paid if we deliver a high quality network that's fast and reliable. So what models are able to do is really push that even more. Because we're looking at, as new data comes in, the networks are being used, models should proactively do what's happening. And some of the products we're building that we're going to announce in about a month at our conference is helping partners imagine what would it be like to be able to apply 1 million network engineers to every network. So being able to scale that up in the back end, where our models are monitoring everything from the data that's coming in, configuration changes, the entire stack, and doing the steps that all of you would do if you were able to just concentrate on every single network. And providing all that to partners, where partners get the credit because ultimately they're the ones that are helping us be responsible for these networks. But Meter continues to provide this great software that scales. Ideally, over the next year, year and a half, it should feel like every Meter partner does have 1 million network engineers. And we should do that with scaling our software and scaling our models.
Good stuff.
We've been chatting a lot here over the last 2 days about the impact of AI, particularly on the software development space. And I'm just really curious about, we hear so much about these low-end coding jobs are going away. AI is going to take that. So can you just talk about the impact that you see there, and particularly when it comes to, having to build out a bench of software developers, if they didn't have that entry-level opportunity, how do they get to that bench that you need?
Maybe I am being too myopic on this stuff, but I don't see it playing out that way. I think what models will turn out to be is like a great calculator. Yes, there's some basic stuff we might not go learn how to do because we can punch it in a calculator, but you still need and still have needed great accountants and finance folks to be able to do the work around it. So I think some of the rudimentary things models can help do will help software engineers, but I actually don't see software engineering going away. It's sort of like the rhetoric that happened with ATMs 20 years ago. James Fallows at The Atlantic has a great piece that he wrote 25 years ago on his prediction on how, even though ATMs came in, why the bank teller jobs won't go away. And he sort of turned out to be right, which is the number of folks that work in banks went up since the ATMs came out, not down. I think something similar will happen with software engineering too.
I'm also curious, we've talked a fair amount about immigration here at this conference. You and your brother are both immigrants that came here as young people. Can you just talk about your views of the H-1B visa policy changes that are being made here in the States, and the immigration climate here, and kind of what impact you think that's going to have on American competitiveness and job creation?
Yeah, this is a topic I'm incredibly passionate about, not just because I'm an immigrant, but because I believe in America deeply. Um, Immigration is one of the best things the United States can do, both in high-skilled and low-skilled labor. We have longitudinal studies across decades that show a few things, which is in markets where there are immigrants, everybody's wages go up, regardless of the socioeconomic status. 2, immigrants account for about 30% of all companies that are started in the United States every year. 3, the amount of talent that comes in, United States has been the only country that's been a net importer of inventors in the entire world. There's a great chart by a professor at Harvard named William Kerr that shows this, which is every country is a net exporter of high-skilled talent. Every country. United States is the only country that's a net importer of this talent. And I think it's really incumbent on us making sure that continues to happen for the next 10 years, but also the next 10 decades after that too.
Yeah. In that same vein, your road to entrepreneurship really began as a kid and being encouraged by your parents. And can you just talk about what it was like to grow up with two people who were also entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I think if any of you had parents that are entrepreneurs or you yourself are entrepreneurs and you have kids, I don't think they pushed us to anything. I think they were too busy doing whatever they were doing. But, most people, whatever their parents do feels very normal for them. My estimation is if you have parents that are astronauts, you think astronauts is a normal job. So that's sort of the thing that happened with us, which is we saw our parents be entrepreneurs and we just assumed that's what everybody does in life. And sort of that charted our path directly.
Yeah. One of the really amazing things that you do, this is going to be our last question, by the way,
Sure.
is you try to positively impact the world by funding young people to go and do interesting things and no strings attached. And can you just tell us about some of the really creative things that people have done with that funding and how it's helped move us forward as a society?
Okay, you guys have really done your research. So what she's referring to is something my brother and I had started doing a while back, which is if anybody's doing any great work on the internet, that might be somebody publishing a great open source project, that might be a YouTube channel, a podcast, a blog somebody starts, et cetera, and if it makes its way to us, we sort of have reached out to people and said, how much money do you need to do this full time for 6 months? And there's been some really interesting things that have come out of it. People making full-length feature films to one of the largest podcasts in the world. This is a young person that came out of that too. People that have gone on to start companies because of it. And honestly, we don't do anything other than if we see something great on the internet, we just reach out and say that. After that, we don't really do much.
You must be met with some skepticism when you make that first outreach.
Yes.
Hey, we'd like to give you some money for nothing.
Yes. Usually people say, who the hell are you? Is this? But, sort of somebody from our office just wires the money and that's that.
Then it becomes real.
Yeah.
Well, what's definitely real is the opportunity that you've come here to talk about and share with our audience. We really appreciate you coming and sharing all these insights. Thank you so much.